Oh, there's easily, I say 30 some odd takes of a grenade dropping.
You have a grenade, you hold it the exact same height over the exact same point, and you drop it, and it rolls differently.
Every time.
And you drop it, and it rolls differently.
I'm pretty sure Jeff Goldblum had it. Make your grenade square next time.
Aerodynamics.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things, I think around 20s, where we just started laughing about it because it was so utterly ridiculous that it kept moving differently every single
It's
time.
not, yeah. I wanted it to go boof, boof, like that.
Climate change.
Were you
Alright.
aiming for it to be 10 minutes? Is there a reason that you
Actually,
shot for that?
so I was aiming for it to be under 5 because I wanted to fan film competition they do every year. But I wrote the script at approximately 5 pages because it's generally 5 minutes, but you can't tell because there's not a lot of dialogue in some pages and action. And action in the script is what, 2 lines? They fight.
They fight.
So
That's 2
all of
pages.
that stuff is figured out outside of the script.
Yeah, I mean, and that's obviously, the fight is obviously substantially more than a minute.
Right, so the actual runtime of the film itself, minus the credits, is about 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the credits were a couple minutes, and then there's the introduction, like, sequence that is another minute. So it ends up being like 9.
Yep. So, and pretty well paced because Gareth did all the music and yeah. So
Yeah, I
it's
tried to
quite
get
good.
all, it is 95% original score. I did steal the Star Wars theme for like the beginning of the end credits because you can't have a Star Wars fan film. Is that locked?
No,
It's a
it's
really
just
difficult
awkward.
door.
It's a very difficult door. Okay, gotcha.
All right, come on in. We're just about to get started with the movie, so you're all set.
So.
Well, one of the nice things about working with the Star Wars Costuming Club is the fact that most people have their own costume.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier. As it is, I still did 3 sets of
Wardrobe
armor.
budget isn't as high.
Yeah, we made from scratch, like actual concept art through production, 1 costume, which was for our leading lady, Allie, who did Tan.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to do at least 1 costume and design it from scratch, because that's fun, you know? Everybody who, I'm a costumer, I wanted to make up a costume, because normally I'm too busy making film accurate stuff, I don't get to make my own costumes that much.
And her payment for doing this film was getting to keep the costume.
Right,
That's
so
awesome.
she got to keep the costume, and she wore the low-key version of it at Celebration, which was fun. So, yeah, should we watch this thing?
Let's watch this thing. I think if anybody else
All
straggles
right.
in, they'll probably want to watch it again. So
With no further ado,
here it is. Yeah, a lot of takes a village to pull one of these things off. It really does. So it's fun. Although Gareth and my names in it a lot.
I really wish there was a better way to condense that.
Well, you did all these things. you
Yeah.
know.
When you're dealing with producers on a film that has 0 budget, their job is coordinating, more like getting people to come pitch in.
Right. A lot of times it's just, if you can't put money in a project, what do you put in?
Yeah.
Like, Mark here put tons and tons of work on several pieces of foam armor for everything from the stunt stuff to some of the actual, like, main armor pieces.
And guns.
And guns.
Lots of
Prop
guns.
Yes. He was also the Nerf herder, extras liaison.
His name was Bob. So
Yes.
Bob Kinnear.
Bob Buccaneer.
Bob Kinnear. The Dread Pirate Roberts. Bob the Buccaneer. I always wanted to be the Dread Pirate Roberts. Any way I could get it.
And the disclaimer.
I kept finding things to add to this.
Don't sue us. Very good. So, that is the Showdown on Sriluur.
Yes, Showdown on Sriluur.
Still can't say the title.
So it's interesting. The opening sequence, you could tell you wrote it for a crawl, but I got to imagine trying to do the CGI for a crawl.
No, the crawl was easy, but this was the way that's the solo standalone film.
Oh, right, there was no
Yeah.
crawl before Solo.
Right,
You're
and since this is not a saga story, I felt that was a little bit more of an homage to that style.
And there was a discussion about that. This is something that we actually did talk
Yes,
about.
we did.
Whether or
You
not
had
we
enough
should-
dialogue for
Yeah.
enough writing there for crawl.
For a quick crawl, yeah.
I wanted to do a crawl. Well, and actually doing a crawl in After Effects is pretty easy. What I've done, and I've done it before, I literally create a PDF file of the crawl as a separate document. And then when you run it in After Effects, you just turn it into a 3D object, rotate it 45 degrees, and run it in a direction based on keyframes.
Versus the original way it was done, which was they printed it on a piece of glass
Right.
and then moved a camera a good 30 feet across it, because it was giant, in order to get nice enough resolution for the film. Yeah.
About 70 millimeters and meters.
Yeah, yeah,
Literally
exactly.
150 foot wide screen.
Yep.
Exactly.
There's
So-
a reason I do props. It's easier.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, it's really funny that you can take a team of like 2 guys in post and maybe 15 or so people on set and put one of these together when it would have taken a cast of hundreds, 30 years ago. So yeah.
Any specific questions we got now? Or?
Actually, I'd like to point out, Dean did the makeup.
Yeah.
And that was all applied in field.
Yeah.
In horrible dusty conditions with wind
So
and
let's
stuff.
see, what time did we show up on Saturday morning? Was it 8? 7?
7.
So we
7:30.
were there at 7, some of us were there at 8.
I was there, so.
You know.
Yeah, we drove all the way up. So this was shot at the Sasco Smeltery. It's an abandoned smeltery up north near Red Rock. And if you hit Red Rock and go way out into the desert, straight through the town, which I don't know why it even exists up there, but it's out there. And you'll find this cool open, abandoned smeltery up there. There's
Essentially all of the cement foundations, because all of the wood buildings.
I wanted to ask
disappeared.
if you had added any graffiti.
I did.
Yes.
Yeah. To make it more empire relevant.
So,
Yes.
so actually, let's go to a frame of that.
Boba Fett's a mama's boy.
Well, no, actually, it was cover up.
It was the opposite. I actually
cover up some of that.
I actually took graffiti out. When we were filming, we filmed this whole fight sequence in that
That's like
area
a shot.
right there.
That's obvious.
Yeah, yeah. So that's Arabesh, which is the common language, I guess, of sorts in
Right.
Star Wars.
So
What does it say in Arabic?
Rebel.
Rebel.
Yeah.
But it's more important that you know what it said before we put the graffiti on there. Because
Yeah.
we were not going to mess with the
Not
graffiti.
suitable for children.
Because for the most part, 90% of it was illegible anyway.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of work. And you know what? No one's really going to care that much about a bunch of
I
random
cared
graffiti.
deeply. No,
No.
I'm just kidding.
Right.
Yeah.
You would have cared more if we hadn't.
Okay,
Most
so
most of it was more geometric or whatever. So we
Right.
shoot this whole fight sequence, which was a separate day of shooting. We shot most of the photography in
Yeah.
2 days, and then we had this pickup of the fight sequence the other day.
And it should be noted that over a dozen people were in this area while we did this, and not a single one of us saw this until after we were looking at the footage.
Okay, so we go to review the footage, and on this wall is P3
No.
N15.
Oh, yeah.
P3N15
Yeah.
was written.
Yeah, so
Loose letters.
So penis was just right there on this wall for the entire fight sequence. So anytime the wall comes up, I painstakingly went back in there and removed it and blended in this new piece of graffiti. And yeah.
Would have been easier to just take a spray can out there.
Well, we did have a spray can.
But none of us saw it.
Yeah, well, none of us
It
noticed it.
didn't show up, but whatever the camera picked up, there's this great white lettering. It is plain as day on the
Yep.
footage.
Yeah, I didn't even really notice it.
That's really funny.
I
So-
need to get a screen grab of that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's going to be essential. If
Yeah.
we ever-
Yeah.
It's actually really funny if you look at some of the post footage. I only took care of covering it up for what was going to be used in the film. So you'll actually, and what we did is to keep it so that the edit stayed consistent, since we were working on it in different locations, is I literally just created another version of the original clip with my stuff overlaid on top of it and saved out with the same name and all that stuff in a post-production folder. So you'll actually hear me say action, and literally when I say action, the wall goes from being the penis wall to the appropriate wall. And that is like it's almost like it was waiting for its cue.
Right.
And it goes click, and
Right.
it blinks into
Then it puts
existence.
on its costume and
Yeah,
acts,
puts on its
right.
costume and like puts on its game face. It's a fun little little side.
And we used that process for pretty much all the post-production shots because we wanted to make as little amount of effort actually editing as possible because
Yep.
it really only ended up being the two of us doing a lot of that. It was supposed to be just Peter, but time
Yep.
has a
On top of that, I'm not really fluent in Star Wars lore, so it's like I was gonna make blasters doing all sorts of crazy things and realized that there's probably like 3 colors at most, and
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe
Right,
you should handle the blasters.
There's sometimes blue,
Yeah.
especially normally blue is a stunt.
So it's lightsaber colors.
They're lightsaber colors,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but majority of it's red and then green if you're the Empire in space.
Yeah.
But
Which I have an amusing little side on this one. Do you know why the Empire uses green laser bolts? Because World War II German tracers used copper, they were green.
Oh.
and the Americans were red.
Because they use a phosphorus.
Phosphorus.
That's why the bad guys use green and the good guys use red in the spaceships.
That makes
Except the other way around with another Jedi.
Yeah.
Well, machine guns, blasters.
Yeah.
Well, and the space combat was based on
Fighter combat.
aerial combat in World War II because in a real space combat situation, you're like, I think that's a ship over there. That's what the radar says. Fire the missile.
So let's fire, and 2 hours later, you know if it hit her.
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't make for a really big screen.
No, it doesn't.
No,
Stop
this is
it.
why this is a galaxy, far away. 'Cause-
Physics doesn't work the same.
Yeah.
There's sound in space over there.
It's funny. So my mentor, David Stipes, who did the visual effects direction for Next Generation, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine, he was one of my instructors when I was in college, and we talked a lot about like space battles. And he's like, you'll notice all the time it's based on naval combat. This idea, and like the ships pitch down as if they're sinking in space, but you don't sink. There's no up or down or left or right. It's just, but they just took the visual metaphor for the sinking in space.
I always wanted to do
Yeah.
some kind of a scene in a fan film where the two ships come at each other and they're like all cockeyed and they're arguing with who is right.
Yeah, who's
No.
pointing out?
You're upside down. How can I talk to you?
The
No,
plane
you're
of this
upside
system
down.
is this way.
Right.
No, because that planet, and that's the good one, so it has to be.
Yeah,
So
we're
there-
orienting to this star system. So
Yeah. So that's a whole skit right there.
Yeah.
That's gonna have to happen.
I mean, in Star Wars, though, I mean, your launch's arc.
yeah,
Across
yeah, they long. Yeah, space is not curved in that way.
It's like, okay, so space, no.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really cool. Like I gotta say, working with the people who are so like adamant and into accuracy and who totally enjoy this universe and just have this rich knowledge of it was super.
That is
super
the
fun
really
to
nice
work
way of
with.
saying OCD.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was doing.
That
So
was
what is your
appreciated.
camera rig for this?
Honestly, so I shot this on a Mark II.
Oh, my iPod.
No, 5D Mark II for most of it. I wanted to use the Mark IV, but unfortunately, last minute somebody, So I run the equipment borrowing service for the University of Arizona called Gear to Go, and at the last minute, I had to give up the one camera I really wanted to use for the shoot because I wanted to shoot 4K, but we didn't. So I used the Mark II, which has like a full frame sensor. It lets you get some of that nice cinematic look. And then I had a T5i for pickups for doing like handheld actiony stuff. Shot some of it on a gimbal, but most of it's handheld and tripod shots. So we just found that you're fighting the gimbal to try and get what you need, and a lot of it we thought for the sake of the fight sequence, I wanted to be more run and gun kind of guerrilla style shooting in there. So,
Right. And it worked for the film, I think. I think it wasn't too crazy
Yeah.
that it made people go, whoa, what's going on? But at the same time, you felt in it.
Yeah, it was a lot of locked off camera for the most part because we wanted to, if we were going to do visual effects shots, we wanted them locked off. There's a couple that we chose, let's do a motion shot.
And this was filmed in 16:9 screen ratio and then blocked down to the letterbox widescreen because Cinescope. And we only did that because, Star Wars was done that way, but also it promotes more action because when you have a compressed vertical space, all the left and right movement is more pronounced, so it feels more intense.
Yeah. There were like a couple other like little secret invisible effect shots in this that were fun.
Yeah.
There's one where they completely miss in the stunt choreography a punch, like one's pulling away while the other one like is pulling their fist in, and it's just like it's totally
like this.
I'm
It's-
sorry,
it's-
I
it was-
noticed that.
Oh, yeah. So, but we actually went in and we added a little extension of the arm and like froze
It's
the
right
person's
there,
head.
but Literally can't find that frame. But
Yeah.
oh well.
Yeah. And that
It's
like
in there.
It looks more like it connects now, but you know, for the most part. And what's kind of cool is we worked with a guy who works at the old TusCon studios.
He did. He doesn't now, but he used
Used
to
to.
work as a stunt guy at Old Tucson Studios.
Yeah, to help us do the stunt choreography, and he does that great pratfall when the guy gets hit by the sniper and falls into the speeder.
So you guys don't have the actual blaster sounds till later.
Right.
No.
So are you going pew pew?
Well, it was either pew pew or bang.
Bang, bang, yeah.
Mine
Oh.
actually did make
Oh.
pew pew noises.
There was one instance where we used an air horn
Okay.
because we wanted to get a legitimate reaction from the extras, and they were so far away from the shot that it was the only way
Yeah.
that it worked.
Was that the sniper shot?
That was the sniper shot.
Yeah.
So the sniper shot, we used an air horn for that.
But
That's why
otherwise,
everybody
pew
twitches
pew.
at the same
Yeah,
moment.
pew pew or bang, 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 bang. Yeah.
Right. There's one shot I tried to use as much of the on location sound as possible, just because time constraint. I didn't have the luxury of going in and redoing every piece of sound, which is normally what I like to do. So it's a half and half. Some of it I did post, some of it is actually there, and there were a lot of scenes where there was a lot of direction and a lot of, you know, when someone off screen is yelling, you know, bang, 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 and you've got like people making sound effects so you can act properly. Because when I filmed this, I had every intention of redoing all the sound. But when it came down to it, I'm like, man, I gotta save as much of this sound as possible. So I'm like trying to cut in and out of all of these random yells of various things.
Did you do it almost exclusively digitally, or did you do a lot of Foleying, or?
It's a bit of both. There were some sound effects, like with Star Wars sound effects, there are just certain things you have to just use the iconic sound.
Right.
If you don't,
Blaster.
people will yell at you.
And
So,
they don't know what that is now. That's supposed to be a blaster, but that doesn't sound right.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I did make a new blaster sound for the character Bob, because his rifle it's based on the E11D, which is what the Death Troopers used in Rogue One. But it's a little bit shorter. It's like a carbine version of it.
It's like cut off.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna make a slightly different sound.
how that works.
And so, yeah, but for the most part, it is a combination of all of those. Whatever I could do, some Foley work, some effects. I have the BBC sound effects library that I got a hold of years ago, and now they've released it for educational purposes. So some sounds I did get from that, like explosions. I don't have the facility to go out and record explosions well, as much as I would love to. Whether I recorded them or not would be the secondary aspect. It would be fun to just go out in the desert and blow something up because I've never done that. But
The explosions, real life explosions sound nothing like Foley explosions.
exactly. So the explosion sounds, even the mundane grenade sound, that is actually about 5 sounds layered on top of that.
Yeah.
Each one of them taking care of a different aspect of the I guess the audio palette that you expect to hear when you see something blow
Yeah.
up on the screen.
It's funny when you think about reality versus expectation. We all,
Oh, yeah.
you know, you're not naive viewers. You've seen films before. You have an experience with this medium. You understand this specific universe has its own palette that, you know. So you have to give what people expect, in some degree, you know.
Right. Which it's for me, it's like part of the artwork. It's part of the fun of making it. It's like the melodrama of special effects. you know?
Speaking of artwork and special effects, let's give some credit to the main
Let's
hero
actually
girl
see
there.
if we can't get a good shot. Why don't you spend a bit of time talking about the makeup application?
Yeah, so I mean, going off of what you guys were saying, is there's very expected palettes and looks for this universe, and this is a fairly well-known alien species, so we have to follow along with what is expected of that species, and I spent hours reading lore about them and making sure that she would have the correct biology. And then I meant to grab my sketchbook and didn't, but there's, 3 pages of artwork of just concept. And then the horns were kind of fun. I sculpted a larger one and a smaller one out of air dry clay. And then they were resin cast. We made 2 of each so that they would match. They are then applied just with spirit gum and latex to build up the cuticle around the horn. And then it was just, another 4 hours of doing the rest of her makeup. And just, layers and layers, not only to make her look good on screen, which, in person it was a little wonky, but...
And that was the tricky bit. Yeah.
And that's, when you're doing a film, you have to think about the camera that's being used and how it picks up color and how it picks up texture. And, so...
Seeing makeup in person is one thing, but then when you have to transfer it to a photograph or to film, it's a whole other animal.
Yes, there are things that we pick up in real life that cameras don't, and there are things that cameras pick up that we don't. And you have to really pay attention to that. And, it was just a lot of fun getting her input and Garrett's input on what they wanted in terms of the design, and then going through and just making it look good on film.
Are her cheekbones really that awesome?
No.
No,
That's some great contour.
That was a
Really is.
lot of contour. When I looked at it in person, I'm like, oh, you look like a drag queen. I'm sorry.
But obviously,
But yeah, it doesn't come across like
No,
that
it
at all.
translates
No,
perfectly.
yeah.
I think, I don't know, there's probably a picture of her somewhere without the makeup on for
Actually,
comparison.
you can.
Oh,
yeah, she shoots herself.
Yes, she shoots herself.
Also, another thing is due to a lack of extras, we actually repurposed her on the second
Oh.
day to shoot people getting shot, and
Great.
she is the first kill is herself, which I guess is some sort of weird catharsis. I'm not sure.
if you're gonna do it.
If you're gonna do it, so it's like literally the next shot.
And we did a very quick one because we didn't want people thinking, wait a minute, why is it?
There she is.
Yeah, that's what she normally looks like without her makeup. So with a giant helmet on. So
Yeah.
Yeah, Shamar Richards' helmet.
Yeah.
There are so many. Yeah, there's lots and lots of takes of this.
Yeah. The tattoos are liquid eyeliner. And
Actual shot.
yeah, I had a template that I used to get the general shape and placement, and then just made sure to smooth up the lines. And then one of my favorite details that really, I think, helps make her look alien, but you would never notice, is that she has no mascara. Because Zabraks are not supposed to have hair.
Right.
Some of them
Oh.
do have hair, some of them do have eyebrows, but none of them have eyelashes. And so it really helps with that alien look to have this dramatic makeup, and then there's nothing in that line.
And in character-wise, Tan is actually meant to be half human and half Zabrak, hence the hair being a lot more prominent than normally would be for a regular Zabrak.
and cheaper than a skull cap.
Yes. Yeah, and
Just the zero budget.
Yeah.
I think. Well, it cost me $11.34 to get her here from LA because that's
Jeez.
how much was left over when she used her airplane miles.
Yeah. The big thing about like making a fan film like this is leveraging your connections and leveraging the community. Like, excellent, beautiful costumes. Like Mark was saying at the beginning, like most of them have their own gear, so you can just put them on the screen.
Jets was specifically, the film was done because of Michael McMillen's costume.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when we had, let's see, the very opening scene is probably the best overall look of that costume, right? Or no, there's another scene you have.
Yeah. And there's got to be a full body shot here. So.
Oh, what am I talking about? There's one right about.
Oh, right when he's grabbing the rock.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, this whole sequence is good. We can
Flare.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a practical list.
That's absolutely 100% real.
I love this mischievous smile is my favorite. So yeah, the impetus of this film was Gareth saw this costume, and he's just like, I need to do a film with you, and we need to do a fight. So like
That was 1 year ago at TCC.
yeah. So and then we started. He pulled me along, and he kind of tapped his community and his network and said, who knows what and what, who'd be willing to just do it for fun. And
Yeah,
that's
it's surprising how many people just like, I want to do it.
yeah.
What do you need? What can you do? I don't care what I do. Just get me in the project. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I had a whole group of friends of mine who were so Pat and Kathy and Mary were kind of the ultimate in production helpers for the majority of that. So Pat and Kathy handled 90% of just making sure people didn't die on set.
Food, water,
Shelter,
shelter.
shade, all of that stuff. And that's what they did. That's what they did the entire time. They
Craft
wanted to do
services is
film.
always the unsung hero of production. If
Yes.
if you don't feed your crew or
They're
make
gonna
sure that
die.
they're refreshed,
Yeah. And then-
you'll get revolts and people just walking off set. It's just,
Right?
So they
Which is why we had an official nerf herder. I was the representative for all the extras. If they had a
Right.
problem, they came and talked to me, and I resolved it, because we had done a production recently where all of your extras are in costume, and 3 hours later we're sitting there, and I'm like, you know what? And I went up and I said, okay, look, you're either gonna start using them or we're done. And gosh, things happened real quickly.
Right.
But that's why we had that position, is so that we had somebody to represent our extras, because being an extra and sitting in costume sucks.
yeah.
For hours and
And especially poor Sarah, who was dressed as the Twi'lek.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
Sarah did all her own thing, because I mean,
Yeah.
some of you probably already know Sarah Willwater. She's a regular at a lot of conventions around
You
here.
know, some of this armor, you can't sit.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, some of it you
You
can't.
have to just stand there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a full body stormtrooper with Michael's partial plate. That
I don't know if it was all of the scenes. This one
That
I think might
helps.
have been. That one, yeah, that's. So in some shots, that is an actual ABS formed plastic. In other shots, it's this thing.
It's this foam guy right here. Because we knew he was gonna have to get kind of a little physical. They formed this guy out. You want to talk a little bit about your creation here?
So, as soon as we knew there was going to be a fight scene, if you try and buy this piecemeal, this is $120. And, we don't have the money for that. So I went ahead and I contacted Tinker Cosplay. They're in the thank you. They're local cosplayers that do a lot of foam work. You've probably seen theirs at sometime if you go to cons. We took his original plates. We went ahead and made patterns out of them, traced it out, cut it out, assembled it, had a lot of hiccups on the way, including the fact that black Sharpie will bleed through white paint forever.
Yeah.
Part of the reason this is cracking as is because I finally had to use filler paint to get it to stop.
Use like kills.
Yeah, it was bad. I think I used.
Being as an artist, yes, getting to a Sharpie is very not easy.
I use
Pencil,
Sharpie
use
if you
pencil.
went over it.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that now. Okay, so
Lesson
what
learned.
happened?
We're
is-
sharing that knowledge now.
is we got it and we cut it out and we looked at it and we're like, oh, we messed up. It's not symmetrical. And we traced the line to see where it's symmetrical, but we're looking at it and we effed up, right? And we're like, okay, so do we redo this? And the guy that's helping is like, let's just assemble it. So we figure out how to assemble it so we know, and we assemble it and we look at it and we're like, oh, and we put it on the original and go, oh, the original's not symmetrical. Some guy carved it out of clay and then they approved it and they just cast a whole bunch of them.
Right.
So that was the first thing I learned about Star Wars in the 70s, is that nothing is symmetrical. So it worked, but all told, there's over 12 layers of paint on this. There's about 12 hours total work on this. If I was getting paid minimum wage, we could have bought the armor. And that's one of, I did 3 checks, 3 sets of armor, shoulder pads, and at least 3 or 5 blasters. I don't remember which.
Yeah, so specific, that doesn't include the stuff you had already made that we used
Right.
for this.
Right.
1250 or all the way to what?
I think we can stay until actual 1. I mean,
Okay.
that's the other question too, is that I know there were a
Hey, here's the
couple
people
of
that
people.
joined you after.
Yeah, so you guys missed the
You
actual
wanna watch it
film.
again?
Do
Or you wanna watch it?
Quick question, how long was recording on site?
So we were there till about 5-ish on
So only
Saturdays
one
and
day?
Sundays.
7, 8
No,
to
it was
5.
a weekend and a half.
Oh.
So technically 3 days. But
So closer to 6, I think.
Hmm?
On the third day, it definitely was only 6 hours.
Oh yeah, on the third day it was only about 6 hours.
Well, we went until 6.
Oh,
until
yeah.
oh, that's right. That first day we did go later.
It was
Yeah.
like 6 or 7 because we were doing them.
Which then meant we
Right.
had to worry about making sure we got sunlight correctly for the next day, because of course,
So yeah, so at one point, like stuff that we filmed at the beginning of the day, we had to wait for the middle of the day, so we had other stuff in the middle of the day, and then we filmed things
Yep.
the opposite
So-
way around.
That's a trick that I learned is when you're shooting in the desert, if you shoot one direction in the morning, and then you can shoot the other direction in the afternoon, and that way you get front light on both characters. Most people don't give a crap and they're not going to pay attention. And then you do all your interior stuff at high noon, because shadows don't matter because you're inside
And shade.
Yeah, and
Oh,
the
God.
shade. And unfortunately, Sasko, once you get inside of the structures, which are these awesome like cement structures, it's quite cool. You know,
It is,
it's
yeah.
actually
It's a
really refreshing to be inside.
So there were tons of people huddling in these catacombs during.
Yeah.
That's why if you ever go out there, make sure to clear it out first because it is cooler in there and the animals know that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh.
We did get interrupted a few times while shooting because it is just open range. You just go out there, you do whatever. People could shoot firearms out there
And
as
did.
well as films.
And did, yeah.
And there's actually the whole sequence with the sniper. It took us forever because she would start to deliver some lines and somebody was shooting some 50 cals up there, and it was just like,
Boom.
yeah, we have to wait. And then she'd try to do the next line and do a couple of takes, and then she'd have to wait, and because we could not replace her audio after the fact.
Right. She may not
Actually,
be in
her little
town
headpiece
to-
had a wireless microphone in it, so that we could record dialogue as cleanly as possible. Because she lives in LA, and we're not going to bring her out to do ADR.
Yeah, this was a one shot for her.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's an open access range. I encourage you guys to go check it out. Or if you want to make a great post-apocalyptic film, that's a good place to go. Or
They have a regular like
Two-
mini
two
wasteland
mini
weekend
wasteland events out there.
events there.
Festival of
So-
Ash and another one, I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I think was fun about this is there are 126 shots in the entire piece, right? And originally, like, I did a pass of like, how much visual effects would we want to do? And it's like 86 things I would like to do. 86 shots could use a touch. And then we like, as we get closer and closer, like, this thing needs to be done. I think we compressed it down to about 25 visual effects shots of like what actually needs to be in this film. So.
And some things may still get added before the online release, which we're aiming for January.
We're gonna
So-
run it again.
Okay.
And I think we should play it again for at least a couple of the people that missed the initial showing.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit the. That's all they got paid for, so. Like I said, we put them in the credits.
But
So.
mostly it's you.
Did you actually perform this? Like, do this piece?
Oh yeah, this entire thing was done.
Yeah.
I use Cubase as my main sort of controller software, and then there's an orchestra sample library that brings in all these different instruments called East-West Symphonic Orchestra, I believe. They've got different modules for different sections.
But you actually played the notes and all this stuff, right?
I program, well, it's a combination of both.
Okay.
I did
Programmed it.
some playing, I did some programming, just depending on how much I could actually perform.
Okay, fair.
I'm a guitar player, not a keyboard player.
Very cool.
Quick question. You said it would be out around January. Where will it be online?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Does that work? Well, that works this time. It didn't work earlier.
Okay.
What the heck?
Probably YouTube.
We're gonna try YouTube.
Until they take it down for violation.
It just depends on how much of that small amount of Star Wars theme song in there is gonna trigger their software.
Yeah.
But if not, I probably will just have it available somewhere that people can download.
Probably do Vimeo. Like,
Vimeo's easy. They
Yeah.
don't care.
And as long as you don't monetize it, there's not a whole lot of repercussion. You might just have to
Right.
put like original score owned by, you know,
Which I
Disney.
did already, which is
Yeah,
fine.
so that's one of the hardest things about doing a fan film is like all these other places will flag it for copyright infringement and things like that, when literally less than probably 20 seconds of it isn't original material. Alright.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming out.
I just work here.
I thought totally could have went through that shot.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Could have made it.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions before you run?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming.